I am here for you. Little did I know that those few words would lead to a request that would change the history of our church. Father Jared and I had been getting to know one another since he and his family moved here last August. We're both active in the local clergy association, and we'd enjoyed a private cup of tea and conversation together on one of the tables outside of Mr. India. It was fun to get to know him and some of their history, how his family moved here to Newburyport after spending 10 years in London, and why he had chosen a position as a parish priest instead of an academic post. We bonded over similar experiences that we had moving to Newburyport and to our adherence to the teachings of Jesus, namely nonviolence and to love your neighbor. I was not surprised then to learn that Father Jared's parish, St. Paul's, was converting their Sunday school rooms into temporary housing for Afghan families and refugees. As soon as I learned this, I immediately sent him an email, assuring him that our congregation and I would do whatever we could to support their efforts. I closed this specific email with the line, "Whatever you need, I am here for you." We had multiple exchanges over a little bit of time around other things. Folks went and helped his family. And then 2 weeks after that email, I received a specific email from Father Jared answering that email. And this is what he wrote. "We are going to run out of room." The first family had been settled there, or temporarily. He wrote, "There's a second family coming in a few days to live in our space. And immediately following that family is a third family who we cannot house. Can FRS provide temporary housing for them? I am here for you." Thus began a journey that started with a unanimous vote of the parish board on December 14th, followed by a remarkable 28-day feat wherein you converted our parish hall into a warm and welcoming home. Well over 100 people helped to do this and are continuing to help. Who says Unitarian Universalists don't believe in miracles? We just believe we have to be a part of making them happen. Members and friends of this congregation, as well as many others in the larger community, have stepped in and stepped up to provide rides, to take the family grocery shopping, teach ESL, donating items from large rice cookers to umbrellas and sleds. You've made runs to the dump, you've overseen construction projects, and I could go on and on. The most important priority now is to help secure permanent housing for the family and the other families that are living here in this city. The success of this project at FRS is also due to many people who are working behind the scenes. This includes our staff, especially Rob Autier, our very new Director of Church Operations, Diane Carroll, our office administrator, and Donnie Rogers, our sexton. It also includes parishioners, many parishioners, who are ensuring that the other work of the congregation is continuing. Work such as fundraising, governance, finance, and communications, and I could go on. And I must thank you all. I told myself I wasn't going to cry this morning. For the moral support and encouragement of every person in this congregation. Your thank you notes and encouraging emails, your smiles, your telling me it's okay I didn't answer an email, your social media posts, they all matter. And it gives us strength and reminds us we are not alone. It does take a village to care for our spiritual community. People are curious about the family, of course, and they ask all kinds of questions, such as, what are the kids like? How are they doing in school? And of course, is communication difficult? Do they speak any English? We can answer those questions. The kids are amazing. Each one is different. And even though I thought I would never learn 9 children's names, I couldn't imagine my life without them now. We're learning that these kids are remarkably the same as American children. For example, a tween doesn't want snow boots. They want cool sneakers. They're all doing great in school. And the school system, I have to say, is providing astonishingly good care and educational resources and support. It includes training for staff, hiring translators, sending all of their emails home in Dari, which is their native language. Communication has been surprisingly easier than I might have imagined. While everyone there is learning English, we're using Google Translator, which works both from Dari to English and English to Dari. We're also using hand signals, facial expressions, and head tilting, kind of like my dog. So while communication with the Mazzari family has been, again, remarkably easy, communication with the rest of the rest of us and the community partnership, well, at times that's been downright hard. And we are all fluent in English. So there are many groups working together to make this happen. Groups within FRS that you've heard from this morning, including other groups like Hanging Curtains, thank you, Susan and Mark. And there's the group you heard about, coordinating fundraising and volunteering. There's also another group I wanted to share a little bit about and focus on the communication within that group. It's called the Working Group, not the group they referenced earlier in the Light on Community, but this community-wide working group of which I am a part, the Newburyport Area Afghan Resettlement Partnership. This diverse group of 17 people meets weekly to coordinate the relationships with and the settlement of what is now 5 Afghan families living in Newburyport. Just imagine this. It's comprised of 3 clergy persons, 5 community volunteers, representatives from 2 resettlement organizations, 2 state departments, the Newburyport schools, local nonprofits, and a representative from Seth Moulton's office. Between the numbers of issues we're dealing with, the speed at which things change, and the urgency with which things need to happen, combined with the mix of personalities, styles, and preferences, well, let me just say it's been a communication learning laboratory. In any one meeting, I can interact with my father, disguised as a community member, who intimidates me with the depth of his intelligence. Or my mother, looking very much like an employee with a disapproving face. Or my brother, who tries to steal all the thunder in a room. I'm kidding, of course, but not really. Thich Nhat Hanh writes in his book, The Art of Communication, when we practice in a community, there are more people to support us and more opportunities for frustration and anger. Loving speech and deep listening are key to community building. Community and working together in community, I find, can be like walking into a hall of mirrors. We must know ourselves well enough to be able to learn to distinguish our distorted thinking from what is actually happening, and sense when our reaction to a situation or a person is infused with our own history. It happens to everyone. There's nothing wrong with us because we get triggered or respond in less than ideal ways. We are all doing our best. We all have histories, full of garbage and glory, love and pain, loss and recovery. The problems come when we forget this and then act out of a place of unresolved past. Just as there's nothing wrong with us as individuals for having things we're still working on and places in us that still hurt, there's nothing wrong with a community or a group of people who have things that they are still working on and experiences that can cause hurt. What matters is how we respond to those things. We are most likely to respond to pain as a member of a community, and yes, this church community, in the same way we respond to pain within ourselves. We are most likely to respond to pain as a member of a community the same way we respond to pain within ourselves. This is true whether the pain is anger, fear, grief, anxiety, or any number of other challenging emotions. Some of us may want to forgive and forget, to move on to the next thing, or stuff the pain, and then wonder why you feel less connected to the community. Those who learn to fight fire with fire may become enraged when there is disagreement, while still others of us may freeze, shut down, or put the blame on ourselves when something difficult happens. The key to learning how to effectively communicate, says Thich Nhat Hanh, lies first within ourselves. In learning to recognize, understand, and accept our own pain and suffering, we are better able to offer compassion, curiosity, and openness to others who suffer, which is everyone. He calls it coming home to ourselves. He writes, to stop and communicate with yourself is a revolutionary act. This is not easy work, and it is not ever done. However, it does lessen in my experience, and the history, the past, loses some of its control over us as we stay faithful to understanding it. Richard Rohr says that we either transform our pain or transmit it. Communication and community both come from the Latin word communicare, which means to impart, to share, or make common. The people in this community collaboration that I described earlier, there's just stand-ins for people with whom I had the original pain. If we're not careful, we repeat the same patterns of communication and relationship over and over again and reinforce our original wounds. We can heal this internal pain, however, we cannot do it alone. We often have to be in relationship to have the pain exposed. Ty calls it bumping up against our sensitivity. So here at FRS, we experienced this at our annual meeting last year. A conflict arose around proposed changes of pronouns in the bylaws. Things got heated, harsh words were stated, and people were hurt. I have no doubt that many of our sensitivities were bumped up against. We have choices, however, in how we respond to that. We can pretend it didn't happen. We could try to find a way around it. We can stifle the pain or threaten to leave the congregation. Or we can use this experience to learn and grow stronger as a church community. We can talk with one another and learn more about the issues, about other people's stories, and ourselves. I'm going to quote C.B. Beale from last Sunday, who wrote this. They call it bearing witness. And they said, talking about our lives and having our truth received, care and trust is built when people bear witness to themselves and one another. C.B. said, when we bear witness to people, we must consistently notice and set aside our thoughts and assumptions. the things that don't make sense to us because we don't yet have the whole picture. We must recognize when what we are bearing witness to is so different from our own experience. And it is especially then that we must take care not to dismiss it. Your parish board wants to provide opportunities for us to do just this, to bear witness, practice having difficult conversations, learn how to disagree, and stay together and grow stronger because of it. So they've put together a series of discussions that will happen in March and April. These 2-hour discussions will be using our affirmation of faith as a guide to help people learn to talk about challenging topics that they have differing opinions about. We need to learn how to do this in preparation for this year's annual meeting. However, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. We need to learn how to do this and have these skills as we live into our values, mission, and ends. As we decide what to do with the parish hall long term in renovations and face decisions like becoming an anti-racist congregation or not, how to handle our 300th anniversary, when and how to hire a second minister, and it goes on and on. And the beautiful thing about it is that as we learn to do it here, it extends into our whole lives. We believe that having these conversations, and we're only asking people to go to one of them, we're simply offering many options of when that would be. They're all the same format. 1 2-hour conversation. Think about this for a moment. What if that conversation changes your life? What if it changes the future of this congregation? What if it lets you stay? What if it lets you find your voice? We believe they'll help every one of us grow into more compassionate, open-minded, and supportive individuals, even as it strengthens our common bond as a church. Having those essential building blocks are key for being in a genuine community and in true harmony and peace. I just want to return for one moment to that difficult communication that I started this sermon with, that community collaboration where my dad shows up and my mother and my brother. It is hard. And it is transforming my life, inside and out. May it be so here. May it be so for all of us. Amen, and blessed be.